Welcome to some new r/PettyRevenge stories, where people share small victories over those that wronged them. I hope you had a great day. But first, thank you for subscribing to the channel and for all those likes. Today we have 5 great stories, so let's get right into them. Shall we? The first story is called Old School Revenge. My great-grandma was born in the late 1920s. So when she got pregnant outside of wedlock, her family forced her to marry my great-grandfather. This was not what she wanted, because she really didn't like him. She and my great-grandpa pretty much never got along. They were always fighting and would constantly do petty things to each other. Things like my great-grandma putting a piece of raw meat on 2 pieces of bread when he refused to eat what she made and demanded that she makes him a sandwich. But he could also be really controlling. He refused to let her leave the house to do her own errands or have any form of life. If she wasn't leaving to go to work or doing stuff specifically for or with him, she wasn't allowed to leave. To ensure this, he would take essential parts out of her car when he left for work. He'd take the parts with him and always assumed he had won. Well, she was a feisty woman who wasn't about to put up with that. So she got a book on basic mechanics to learn how to put her engine back together. He then would go buy parts for her car that he would regularly take out. He wasn't a mechanic or anything, so they were always small parts that would be easy to take out and put back in if you know what you were doing. After he would leave for work, she'd wait a bit to make sure he wasn't coming back for anything. And then she would get the parts. To make sure he didn't know what she was doing, she hid all of the parts in things like flower pots and containers of birdseed that he never messed with. She'd put the part in her car, go into town to do whatever, and then would take the part back out and rehide it before he got home. As far as I know, he never figured out what she was doing. He just smugly believed that he had her completely stranded at home. All the while, she was out in the town living her own life. One final petty thing she did after he passed was to place a whole bunch of plants in his room. They had separate bedrooms since it was custom and they hated each other. She had all kinds of plants in there that he had hated and would never let her keep. She loved those plants and took great care of them until she couldn't anymore. The next story is called Paycheck Revenge. I got a job as an EMT after a 6-month community college training course. I was woefully unqualified, I barely knew the basics. But the teacher kept saying, "Don't worry, the new job will train you when you are hired." I got hired at an ambulance transport place that just took people to dialysis and things like that, not emergency services. But there was no training. I was told to figure it out myself, etc. I didn't know what I was doing and I quickly realized this wasn't a fit. But I continued to try. On day 4, I was let go. I had worked 4 days total. I signed a paper with reasons they were firing me for, all of which I agreed with, so I signed. I asked if they had my check ready. The man who was doing the paperwork said they didn't, but they'd send it to me. Not exactly legal, but okay. I waited and waited. No check. I called to see where it was. I knew they were supposed to get that to me pretty quickly by law. I called a few times to see where it was. The boss lady was so rude, hanging up on me, not taking calls. When I did get someone, they'd say, "We'll mail it." I started researching labor laws because it was getting ridiculous. That's when I found out they have to give me a day's pay for every day my check is late, which was $150. So I stopped calling and started waiting. I finally got a check, but it was a payroll check. And it turns out I had worked 2 days in one pay period and 2 on the next one. So I called again to tell them and got yelled at by the boss lady. Waited another 2 weeks, got my last check and filed my claim with the labor board for not getting my final paycheck in the time allowed by law. It had been about a month by then. The first meeting was a mediation where we tried to settle. Boss lady wasn't having it. She kept saying she didn't owe me anything and her offer was $500. She said this was all a setup by me. I knew they owed me closer to $3,000 and she didn't have a leg to stand on, so I refused. She stomped out and said I'd be hearing from her lawyer. Next, we went before a labor judge. This time, Evil Boss had done her research. Every excuse an employer can use for not paying me the last check, she used. She said I moved. She said I never tried to call them, that they tried to call me numerous times. She said they tried to call me to get my address, but my number was changed. She said her husband was a cop and she was an honest person, and I was a liar and did all this intentionally. She said I purposely didn't clock in and the times were messed up. She also claimed a ton of reasons why I was fired. She claimed I purposely hurt one of the patients, none of which were listed on the paper they made me sign. The judge called her out on that. I went home, printed my phone records and highlighted all the calls, letter from my landlord saying I hadn't moved, etc. and took it back to the labor board and dropped it off. I didn't get to see the judge again, so I don't know if the judge ever saw it. But I did win the case. Plus the judge added 4 days because the last check was sent on a Friday before a 3-day weekend. I was only supposed to be paid until the postmark date, but I got paid till the following Tuesday. Over 3k. Also, the evil lady wasn't paying the ambulance drivers double overtime after 12 hours. So I let that slip while I was in the mediator's office and she said she'd looked into it. I hope they did. The third story is called Getting Back on a Racist. This happened a few days ago. My coworker and I work at a popular hotel in Georgia. Let's call us HI, and the place right next door is HGI. We run the breakfast buffet every day from 6 AM to 9 AM. Every day when we first open, almost nobody comes downstairs, especially now that we are in our slow season. So after we set everything up and open the doors, we step outside on the side of the building for a small break. The door on the side though is broken. It automatically locks from the inside. But there's a trick. If you push the button in the top corner, it won't unlock unless somebody presses in the bar. So we come outside and press the button. Sometimes guests will leave early and press the bar without realizing it. I looked over and saw a guest heading for the door. I tell my coworker to go up there and catch the door before he locks us out. The guy comes out the door, sees my coworker running toward it, and I'm telling the guy, "Hey, hold the door." And as soon as she gets there, he intentionally pushes it. She asks the guy, "Why did you do that?" He says, "'Cause I don't know who you are." She responds, "We are at work, sir." "So am I." He walks to his budget truck in the parking lot. "If you're at work, you need to fix that door. This whole place is BS and I'm sick of rocking around the building to get in." He was yelling at us as if it's our fault the door is broken. I even ran to the manager and asked him to fix it. "You are supposed to be able to open it with your keycard." But instead he put up a sign telling people to just use the main entrance. It's not a far walk, it's literally 20 steps away. He kept saying, "I'm at work" or "I'm going to work," then slams his truck door and goes back inside to have breakfast. Of course he tried to complain about us first, but the manager wasn't there. Then he went back up to his room. My coworker said he was a racist cause he wasn't yelling at me or the guy at the front desk. He and I are both right. But he always gave dirty looks and an attitude to her and our other coworkers, who are both black. Here's where the revenge comes in. As I said, the guy had his truck parked outside in the lot. But did you know there's a rule that if you're staying with us, you have to park in the parking garage and the lot is for HGI next door? He did. I know he did, because every time the front desk checks someone in, they give the guest a parking pass and tell them, "You need to park in the garage. If you park in the lot, they will tow you." So I waited throughout the breakfast hours after he went back to his room and the truck was still there. Then at 10 AM the manager came in. I went up to him and said, "Hey, you see that budget truck in the lot over there? You can see it through the dining room window." He said, "Yes, what about it?" "Well, the guy who drives this is actually a guest here, not next door." I spoke to him earlier and he said he was leaving for work, but it's been 4 hours and he still hasn't moved. He put his hand up to stop me from continuing and he said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." So my manager called the manager at the HEI and they called us towing service. Within an hour it was gone. He apparently tried to show out the manager and actually said, "This is why you people need to go back where you came from." My manager is Indian. I assume he was thrown out or checked out after that, as I haven't seen him since. No regrets. The next story is called Cat Revenge. A while ago, one girl that was my roommate's and boyfriend's friend was going to stay over off and off over the next month. But then she decided to move in on the couch, with my roommate's and boyfriend's approval without me knowing, which I wasn't happy with from the get-go, but oh well. She was going through hard times and I was trying to be nice, even though I thought she was being sketchy. What annoyed me too was that she wanted my 2 cats to stay locked up in my bedroom, cause she was allergic. They love the couches, they got cleaned beforehand I guess, and not being confined. They would get restless during the day and night and act out once in a while. Well, I went through something traumatic and wasn't doing well. Well, while I was in my bedroom that night, I came back from the hospital and I could hear her flirting with my boyfriend in the kitchen while he was getting me water. Now, I wasn't in a sound mind and was angry beyond belief. So while they were gone the next day, I let my cats out and let them sleep on the couch. She's not terminally allergic, just an annoying sneeze, watery eyes, stuffy nose, etc. Let's just say that although hearing people walking up and blowing their nose all night is annoying, it made me extremely happy. She left soon after. Not cause of the cat, but because she proved herself to be a lying little jerk and was trying to pit my boyfriend and roommate against each other. The last story is called Never Mess with a Lawyer. This began about 25 years ago. My father's friend, who passed away some years ago, needed a medical operation for a non-life-threatening problem, but a life-changing one, increasing greatly his life quality. Here, where we live, we have a fairly good public healthcare system, but apparently they refused to make the operation. So he went to another country and paid for the operation there. Not much later, he decided that he was mistreated by the healthcare system here, and that they should have performed the operation. So he went to a lawyer, asking if it would be possible. Let's call him Greedy Lawyer. The lawyer told him that he had quite decent chances, so he gathered all the documentation, proofs and all the stuff the lawyer required from him. Basically, he made all the work while the lawyer was preparing the case. 1 month after he gathered and submitted all the required documents, the lawyer contacted him explaining that it was no use on even going to court because there was no case. But, of course, his fee had to be paid. So my friend's father decided to do what anyone who felt scammed would do and sent the lawyer a letter, telling him to screw himself and that he wouldn't pay. But you know what they say, don't mess with the lawyer. Luckily it wasn't too bad, just sued him and of course made him pay all the fees, including interest and court fees. Adjusting to actual money, it would be a total of around 7,000 euros. Here comes the interesting part. See, my friend's father worked at an insurance company. And 5 years after going back and forth, he ended at a relatively big company as a manager of his area. He was in charge of, among other duties, hiring lawyers when needed from a list of recommended lawyers the firm has. And guess who one of those lawyers was? The same one who screwed him years ago. Suffice to say, he never ever hired a lawyer for any case they needed a lawyer. The lack of cases made the lawyer come to the office from time to time, asking if there are any cases for him. Sadly, there never were any for him. For the 20 years, the father stayed at the company until his retirement. Each year, the lawyer would have gotten 10 to 15 cases, and he worked for a fixed fee and a percentage of the money the insurance would have saved. I don't know the exact amount, but I know that those 7,000 he got from him cost him over the years over 5 figures, and he never knew why it happened because, as far as I know, he never recognized him. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.